Assalamu alaikum. I'm Afzal Khan, Member of Parliament for Manchester Gorton, and I'm also Shadow Minister and a member of Vice Chair of APPG Hajj and Umrah in the Parliament.
What was the feeling like that you're being called to the house of Allah?
Well, it's always a pleasure, isn't it, knowing that you are being invited to go to Saudi Arabia and to perform Hajj. As traditionally we say, you can only go there when there's an invite from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for me, it was a last minute to this extent that when I got to the airport, I still did not have the meningitis injection. So I had to get somebody to come to the airport, give me the injection and the certificate so I could board. It's not my first Hajj. I have done Hajj before, and in fact this is my third Hajj. Grateful for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give me so many opportunities really to visit there. But what's amazing is every time it's different.
What was the difference between the previous Hajj and the Hajj this time around, the experience? I mean, you just said that it's different every time. What was the difference between all the three different Hajjs? Just very briefly, if you want to just touch upon the difference.
I think probably the way to understand is like our life. We are going through a journey. Things are progressing. What it was like 30 years ago is no longer like that, the life. So I think that also has an impact on Hajj itself. So when I did my first one, I was very young. I was with my parents, and that was back in 1984. And in a funny way, that was probably the most interesting one, in the sense that lots of things had not been developed in the Mecca itself. And there was very basic facilities in Mina, Arafat, Muzdalifah. And so therefore you could almost experience it very close to the way the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahabas actually performed. But what has happened since then is more and more improvements have been added in, the new modern technology, facilities, all are being added in there. So that is making a difference. So I remember when I went back in '84, you could actually go down to the well of Zamzam, actually see them that working, and actually they were able to manually pull out the water and give you to taste direct, that experience is no longer there now. You can't even get to anywhere near the well. You don't know where it is when you go there. So that is one example. And I think the second one you see is also the expansion of the Kaaba itself, because more and more Hajis, people are visiting the house of Allah, and therefore the capacity has to increase as well. And then you see every time you go, it's different, and that means the surrounding areas are also changing to accommodate this huge number, which are global, isn't it? Millions and millions go throughout the year, and in the Hajj itself, you're talking about 2-3 million. And that is a huge challenge, and that's probably what explains the clear out that they've been doing as well. Some of it is, I think, disappointing in a sense. There are historical places which we would want to see them preserved. And then other is to make the facilities easier for the Hajis. And therefore you see huge towers of blocks of hotels and rooms where people can be accommodated. And that in a way, at one level, so you think, hold on, this is sort of overpowering even the Kaaba, what's happening here? But on the other side, you think about the need. If you don't go upwards, but then you'll have to go horizontally, and then further away you go from the Kaaba. So there has to be some sort of compromise to do that. So you see all those changes. And then this year, I suppose what struck me most was the use of technology. And that was really impressive. And the state of the art, they were really collecting information and they were instantly able to know. And the whole organization structure of the Hajis, where they are, the camps, etc. So logistically, it's much easier to manage because of the structure they were put in. So on that level, it's better. The stoning, early days, again, it felt dangerous, to be honest. I remember. You got to be careful because the stones are coming from all directions. Half of them are hitting you rather than the shaitan. You get worried, who is the shaitan here? But now it's so well organized that the flow is much better, and you still see tens of thousands of people coming, but they're moving, all the time, and it's sort of almost like a one-way system. I think I was reasonably calm doing my bit, with the stone, but people do get excited. I've seen this clip, this gentleman who's disabled, I think was in a wheelchair, and he gets so excited, he comes out of the wheelchair after stoning, and then his sort of sticks, he makes it into a machine gun, and as though he's shooting the shaitan, People do get carried away a little bit as well, but yeah, it's a symbolic idea, isn't it? Because this struggle of life is there, and this battle with the shaitan is there. It goes back all the way to the starting point, you see. And the shaitan said that I will attack them again and again from different directions. And it's Allah's mercy as well. He said that every time they come to me, I will forgive them, even they have sins as high as a mountain. So this battle with shaitan is there, and in this ritual of Hajj is the symbolic. Again and again you're throwing this, you're rejecting the way of the shaitan, and it's the obedience, and this is the biggest lesson of Hajj. It's the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the mercy of Allah that Allah, despite your mistakes, despite your flaws, that He gives you that chance to be starting again, learning from that mistakes. And that's why in Hajj the idea is your past is cleaned out. You start fresh. And this is also why they clean the shave of the hair as well, or the cutting in my case. But it's about the fresh start. But to me the key lesson is about obedience. As the key lesson ultimately is mercy of Allah, that He gives you the chance to have a fresh start again with the knowledge of those mistakes so that you could perform better. So the salvation idea is much stronger in Islam.
والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك.
So I think you got to give some credit to the authorities, considering the scale of the task which they're having to deal with. And in such a short time, such a large number. And it's not just one-off. The best we can see the example of is here the football match. And I belong to a Manchester with the two great football teams. But I know whenever there's a match, the whole city feels the temperature. There's the change, the pressure in the traffic and everything. But you think about Hajj, it's millions of people. So that is experience. And then they're not sort of a couple of hours. What you're dealing with is sort of 5-6 days. Such a large number of people constantly unmoved. And managing that to make sure there isn't a tragedy, because with that scale, a tragedy can happen very quickly as well.
You've visited for Umrah as well in the past, mashallah. Was the preparation, you only had, I think, what was it, about 8 or 10 days or something prior to traveling? And the preparation, was it any different to when you traveled previously? What was the preparation like?
I'd done the Hajj a couple of times. I'd done the Umrah a number of times as well. So you are familiar with the territory. And you're sort of familiar also with what is required. But nevertheless, I did do a recap for myself, reading some books on the subject as well, then also sat down with a scholar to take things through, because there's lots of opinions around things as well. A classic one was the haircut. Whether just few cuts is enough, or there has to be a proper trim, or has to be a clean shaven, and the differences between all that, and what is permissible and what is even encouraged. So all those things, you get clarifications from the scholars. I think it's helpful, gives you more assurance. So that's sort of a preparation you still do, almost like a recap from my perspective.
Every time you go, I know you've been 2-3 times now, mashallah. But tell me the feeling and the emotions that you were feeling at that moment, sitting in front of the Kaaba. Are they the same as the first time that you went, or when you went for Umrah or visited previously, or were they different? And if they were different, then how so was yourself?
Well, Kaaba is so special, isn't it? And it's a magic. Every time you look at it, it is a magic. So it doesn't matter how many times you've been there. The sheer awe of the whole building, the concept of the God idea, of the unity idea, the concept of billions of Muslims or direction is there. So all of you are always looking towards the Kaaba, and there you are sitting and you see that building. And it's a huge building as well, very tall, very sort of empowering as well. You see it, and you feel it. And as a Muslim being there, it does send those shivers in your body as well. It's just that incredible feeling. I think it hits you all the time, again and again. I don't know whether when you live there, whether that feeling changes. There is a saying of Imam Abu Hanifa, which basically says, move away from the Kaaba as soon as you can because of the high esteem in which we hold it. Don't let it go down anywhere, So that concept of sort of making it regular in this, is there. But for me, every time I go there, I love it. I love going there, and that's why I've been a number of times on Hajj and a number of times Umrah. It also is a great way of spiritually recharging yourself. We live a very busy life, it's hectic, and going there, being able to switch off and just focus for Allah's sake, for Allah, and that really does charge you up spiritually. I think as soon as you put the Ihram on, it has its impact on you. You know the rules and regulations are now applying, which are not the normal life that you have. But again, Islam is a very practical deen. It doesn't want you to totally isolate. When there are things needs to be done, there is that whole flexibility there. But the scale, of course, cuts down. Many things happen. I haven't got a clue. And in normal sense, if I'd been any other part of the world, I'd still be in touch with what is happening. So that switch off actually does happen. And it's about priority. When I had this opportunity to go, I was set to go to New York in the UN, a major event. But for me, when the two came, there was no comparison. The call of Allah always takes precedent. So I had to cancel all that, but went there. And spending 2 weeks there, not only put on some weight, but I've enjoyed it. I met so many incredible people globally from all corners who come there as well. The sheer seeing that 2 million plus people sort of in the same costume, very basic level. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, who you are. You are same there. And then you see sea of that humanity moving in that same direction. And that itself is also magical, really, the experience. And then you get to spend time with them, you get to speak with them, you get to learn of different things. One of the other guys who was with me was minister from Indonesia, the largest Muslim population, and they have the largest Hajjis. They've even overtaken Pakistan now. So you see, and you can see those differences as well. And you learn with one another. You learn about dunya and you learn about akhirat as a religious side spiritually as well.
When I visited for Umrah, it was very busy during the period whilst I visited the Hajar Aswad. It was very, very hard, very hard Hajj. I mean, you went at the peak time where you can't even put your foot down. Did you manage to get to the Hajar Aswad?
The first time I went, 84, even then it was a struggle, and I was a young man full of energy. And now I didn't even attempt, to be honest, because for me, seeing so many people there, I didn't want to be part of that struggle trying to get to the stone. I know that my faith allows me to signal and then to do it like that, and that was good enough. I'd rather not push around another fellow human being there. So for me, I see it spiritually the other way around. So I made no attempt actually to go anywhere near there.
Straight after that, you go for say Safa Marwa,
yes.
mashallah. Tell me about the Safa Marwa. Especially running between the green lights.
Safa Marwa, again, you can see first of all the improvements they have done to it. They've again built layers. So again, to accommodate more people. But probably the most moving part is actually just thinking of that history, how a mother was so desperate, trying to look after for the child. And that's why they also say in Safa and Marwa is the best place to pray for your children as well. is incredible. And then, of course, the green light is when the pace you pick up. You get to you do that bit of sprint. And then you see all of them, sort of picking the pace up, and then in there keeping that sprint, and then slowing it down, and you just keep moving and do those 7 times.
لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن
You have this tens of thousands of people at the same time doing this. But I think each one has its own space. Person is there moving in their own space. I mean, I love a scene, I saw this, I made a short video of this lady. She was walking, and there she was with both hands up, and she was connected with Allah in her own ways. So I think that's what happens there.
What are the steps after Safa Marwa? I think is it when you go to Mina, I believe? I mean, I've never been, unfortunately.
The first one was the Umrah straight away. So I thought, pack that in. And I just did that for my grandfather. I thought, I had met him when I was a couple of years old only, and he died. So I have a very vague sort of memory. So I thought, I'll do it for him, So I did that. And then I then went to Medina. Again, it was an incredible experience. One was that I was part of the official delegation, so the access you have is quite good. So it's a privilege. So having the Masjid Nabawi, the Rosa there, and sort of 3 sides were sort of not much crowd there at all. There was left for us. So almost one-to-one being able to do the Salatu Salam for the Prophet ﷺ, sent him that. And then we had Imam there as well, who helped us to make sure that we do it correctly as well. So I thought that was very helpful as well. Then just spending time and just praying there at the Prophet Mosque is an incredible experience. And then they showed us around. It's a huge complex. And the masjid as well, it's been growing and growing. It's almost probably covers the whole period of Prophet's time. The city is all now in the masjid. That's how big it is now.
You got to get close to the Roza Anwar of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Tell me, did you get to touch the Jaliyah, the golden gates surrounding the shrine of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam?
It was opportunity really to touch, to pray, to observe, and to see inside the Roza as well. You could see it. Normally, because there's such a busy area that you don't get the chance. And what had struck me was on the Roza, there's a beautiful painting of Kaaba. Now, I have been to Masjid Nabawi more than a dozen times, but I had never observed this big painting which is on the Prophet's Roza. So I think that experience also shows you that when you have more time, you observe a lot more which is there. But when there's a lot of people there and you're rushed, then you don't get the chance to fully soak in that whole atmosphere. So I think that was the difference this time for the Roza perspective, because I think there was only about 15, 20 of us, and we had the 3 sides of the Roza to us. And to even pray there, which is part of Jannat, itself is a blessing, I think. And then to stand there, to do Salatu Salam with the Prophet ﷺ, to do your prayers, all those opportunities. And there's nobody to even move you around. Normally there's police officers around, keep pushing you, come on, move, 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 because there are more coming through. But if I'm honest with you, I also felt a bit guilty not having that, because I felt these 3 sides, they are sort of isolated for us. While it's a privilege for us, but there are so many other Muslims who want to be part of who also love the Prophet as much as I love, or others love the Prophet ﷺ. So therefore, for them, all of them, just one side, and for us, these 3 sides, I just felt uncomfortable. But I couldn't say no as well. So that selfish element was there, to make most of it. And then you see, I had the opportunity to meet some Sindhi people there. and some of them knew me. So near the Rosa, there I was outside, they'd asked me to help to serve the tea. And then they also did their traditional Sindhi topi. So that was different, I didn't expect that. But again, it's part of that flow, isn't it, that you have people from all sorts of background there. And then Masjid Quba was there as well. We went to other few mosques as well, which are famous there. We also went to Uhud, and that was really lovely as well. And one of the things which was really touched me was that I was given cufflinks, and they were made from the stone from Uhud. Having a cufflinks linked to that land, that mountain, I thought it meant a lot to me personally. I thought, yeah, what a great gift to receive. So that was Medina, and then you came back, and then we were basically taken to Mina, where the most of the time is. And then, of course, on the Hajj day, you go to Arafat. Incredible experience. It was very hot, as always. I think it's in there is when the testing happens. In the shade, it was around 45. And the direct sun probably went over 50. So you could see that. Again, the experience is incredible, actually. How people are then engaged, how they're flowing, even sort of staying together. For some, it's an effort, really. And then because you have all the different ages, from very young to disabled people as well. And I saw a gentleman, he did not have use of his legs, so he was using his chair with his hands, he was moving it. And you could see that physical energy that he was exerting in there, but still, for him, it was an incredible experience being part of that Hajj, part of that family, part of the unity of the humanity.
You visited the masjid 1,200 years old?
Yeah.
1,200. I mean, to me, looking at it through the video, through the clips that you had, it didn't look that old.
That mosque is a Shafi mosque, so I don't know whether it links to Imam Shafi, but that's what they call it. And actually that mosque is in Jeddah. But I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I think, yes, there has been rebuilding and all that happening, but some of the original 1,200 foundations and all they're there, and they've preserved it. And you can see it through the glass. They put a thick glass on it and you can see it like that. So some of it is renewed, you're right, but I think even one of the minars, and that's over 800 years old. What also I think found interesting this time is that there's clear now a move towards preserving and restoring. And what I learned was 1,000 different places in Medina are now being preserved and renovated. Including the mosque of Sayyidina Umar Razintullah, which is virtually done now. It's about to be opened. So that'll be great. I think this is part of our history, and I'm glad the government finally is getting there, understanding that it's actually our duty to preserve it for the future generations. And they're putting an effort in. So I saw that in Medina work taking place. I saw that work happening in Mecca as well. And I saw that work in Jeddah as well. So they're even preserving now the old city. Again, I was taken around. I was able to see that. I was able to go to see that mosque. I thought normally you wouldn't have that opportunity. But I think if they do this and there is more and more awareness and more people will be interested to visit these parts of Saudi Arabia as well.
You visited a few museums as well. Did you see anything that actually caught your eye and that, you wanted to bring back with you?
2 museums, basically, I would say. One very modern, which has been set up in a mall. I thought that's really interesting in a sense where people generally go to shopping, etc. So they've done a whole floor into a museum. And they have divided that up into about 6 different things, which again found it very interesting, including the whole coins, including some glass work, including the medical side of the work and science side of things, which have been the contribution of the Muslim community. And then there's a whole photographic of over 100 years of pictures. And then the Kaaba connected things as well, which I think, again, is very interesting. So the bit I found very interesting was I never had realized that in the history, the covering of the Kaaba actually has been done by different countries. So that I found fascinating. And then I also found it very interesting that used to be transported from, say, Damascus or Egypt. And then they would go there, or Turkey, whichever, yeah? And it'd be like camels and stuff like that. And then they had prepared this amazing cover as well. The only thing I can describe is in the Indian subcontinent, we have like a dolly, you know, in the wedding. So that sort of idea, yeah, beautifully decorated. And then in that, the cover would be taken. And then throughout the journey of the Muslim lands that it moved through, people would celebrate. So it was almost like a festival. The whole idea of changing the Kaaba covering, connecting it, say, from Egypt to all the way to Mecca, and that whole journey. And they've got preserved all that as well, which I never knew. And looking at that was really impressive, I thought, moving as well.
When you're watching TV, on British Muslim TV, and you're watching the Kaaba, are you going to possibly be thinking, oh, that was my doing, I had some kind of contribution towards that. That kiswa is possibly the one that I helped stitch, or, you know, I mean, that feeling of proudness, will that be there?
My first job was a laborer in a cotton mill. And then I went on to become a battery filler and then a weaver. So in that sense, seeing all that work being done was bringing that back to my own experience. But look, Kaaba is special, isn't it? And preparing that cover itself is a privilege. And having that little bit of contribution is very, very little, I would say. But still, it's an honor, I'd say. And yes, I would be very proud whenever they prepare it. Ultimately, every year they do that, and then they change it. It's something special, isn't it? Having that short video, the photographs, it's also a memory for life as well.
لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعم.
You said you switched off, but then you were fulfilling these duties there as well, mashallah. You were giving interviews. Tell me, I mean, was that a requirement because of your role as, mashallah, as an MP here in the UK, or what was all that about, mashallah?
For me, it wasn't actually anything different, in the sense that was to look at the facilities and the preparation of Hajj, and also to discuss how it can be improved. One of the concerns, of course, we have is that because of the pressure, the Saudi government have introduced a number of things to improve this, and one is the technology aspect of it. There are teething problems, so we were able to highlight those to the Hajj minister and say, look, this needs to be looked at. And the second pressure I think we have is because they want to manage that system properly, so they have to put a limit on the numbers. And the fact that we are over 2 billion and it's every Muslim's wish to go to Hajj, how do they manage this? So they've then devised a formula for like 1,001 person idea. And so wherever we have the Muslims globally, they look at the numbers and then from that give a quota. And in this aspect, our numbers have gone down drastically in Britain. And that's causing difficulty because I think in Britain, most people are financially more able than many other parts of the Muslim world. And so therefore, how do we manage 3,500, 4,000? It's not enough. So it's how do we talk to them, trying to get a best deal for the British Hajjis, and by realizing that every place you take, somebody else is going to lose. So it is a difficult one, and I have a sympathies with the authorities. And I think ultimately we have to do our best to make sure the system is fair and it gives people a chance. And maybe people like me need to go less. You know, you don't have to go 3, 4, 5 times because there are people who go every year. There's no need. You know, mine is about every 10 years, but I think even that is not necessary. But I think giving other people more chance is important. Giving people from different parts of the world a chance is also important. So we have to work on that. And that was the whole idea of that Hajj, looking at some of those challenges.
لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك.
I was able to get to the top level with the Minister of Hajj. able to put some of these points before him. But then I was always also able to walk away with understanding the dilemmas that they are going through. So it's not that they want to stop people. It's just the sheer logistic limitations which are there, and they have to then make those hard decisions. All we got to do is make sure they make the right decisions, they make the fair decisions, which are cross. And as Muslims, we're a global ummah, and think we're all equal. And that's the whole idea in the Hajj as well, of putting those two basic cloths unsewn. That common humanity that we share is displayed there. So that has to be in actions as well.
How do you implement that, the spiritual recharge? How do you implement that in your work or in your lifestyle here in the UK?
Ultimately, if you're a Muslim, you're not a part-time Muslim, you're a Muslim. You're a 24-hour Muslim, and therefore what you do is you do your best. There are weaknesses as well, there are limitations there as well. And what Allah is after from you is your effort, your attempt, your trying. That's the bit. And even if you fail, then He's merciful. He said, come to me, my doors are open all the time. Doesn't matter, how many times mistakes you made. So we shouldn't be bogged down into perfection idea, but to the idea of do your best and keep trying. And Iman is something which increases and decreases. So that is why being in a good company is also encouraged. And this is why they gave the example that if you're sitting around with the ironmonger, there will be smell of smoke in from you, even if you're not being engaged in it. But if you're sitting in a perfume shop, even if you don't put the perfume on, you will get that smell. Yeah. So having a good company is part of recharging your Iman as well. And hopefully with a good company, they can also help you to make better decisions as well. But it's not about perfection, it's about making the best effort.
What would you do different if you could?
Well, I think number one, I would try to get a part of Kishwa. Start working on that effort now. Look, the journey is sort of same, isn't it? It's this journey which has been going on for thousands of years from Prophet Abraham. And the sunnah of the Abraham has been repeated to the Prophet and from Prophet to all of us. So that journey is the same. So all you can do is try to prepare for that journey better and better every time. And the fact that you've done a couple of times, then I suppose you know where the flaws are, where the weaknesses are, where the energy level has to be preserved and where to use it, all that, so that you can do it better. And with that experience, hopefully you can get maximum out of the Hajj experience.
Any sort of advice for someone like me that hasn't been for Hajj? Any sort of advice for us guys or the viewers of British Muslim TV?
It's not my advice, it's an obligation. If you are an able, physically, financially sane Hindu Muslim, then it's an obligation. And as I pray that Allah gives tawfiq to everyone to visit His place, I think it's an incredible experience. It is an experience you will never have anywhere in the world like that, where you are part of this humanity. Where they're moving in the same direction, dressed in the same basic level. And there you see left, right, center, everyone is trying to help one another. I found that really moving. I remember, going through the Masjid Nabawi because I had to get to the other side. And about 10 people pulled me up because they wanted me to sit down with them to have some food with them. Literally, they were begging, And that sort of kindness, you will not find anywhere, actually. They understand that you sitting and having food with them is actually a blessing for them. So they see it like that, helping others. And this is why the Prophet said, the best among humanity are those who bring benefit to others. So the idea of serving humanity is the peak of service. And that's what the prophets did as well. And this is what every good Muslim should be doing as well, serving the humanity. And it was just great experience. My own friend, I wasn't sure whether he'll get there, Lord Wajid Khan. He also managed last minute to get there as well. And there we are, we then met up there. And that was lovely as well. I had some local people from Manchester, when they learned that I was there, they got in touch. My own nephew who had come from Pakistan, he turned up with a Pakistan cricket player. So I met him there as well, and the cricket player who had never met before. So Hajj is a place where you do meet people as well. This is one of the blessings. All people of all walks of life are there, and then you bump into people and you make friends for life as well. I mean, this minister I talked to you about, it's fascinating to speak to him, meet with him, learn about politics in Indonesia, and to learn what he's doing. And, he's promised to stay in touch, how his journey in politics develops in Indonesia. And I find that fascinating as well.
Any final messages for the viewers of British Muslim TV itself?
Well, the final message is your viewers, may Allah bless you. Keep up the good work that you are doing as well, because we're living in a media age where media is also important. You can get a powerful message across. Has so much of negative messages going around. Putting positive message out there is also our responsibility to balance that negativity. So thank you for all that you are doing.
لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك